Hey everybody, 1212. I'm Larry Wiggs. You're watching IC 109. Let me get my sticker. I should hurry up because I don't want you guys waiting for me to get to the point in this video. I put it right there so you can see it rather quickly, alright? Okay, so I'm in Los Angeles, okay? And I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks ago I was in Japan, Tokyo, Japan, alright? Um, the flight the flight that I was on to get to Japan, it wasn't very expensive. Don't get the wrong impression. You have to have a lot of money to travel. You actually don't. What you need to do is you have to have knowledge. You have to know where you're going. And in my case, I'm an experienced traveler. So I've been to these places before. So I know how to navigate, how to get around, how to speak the language. I know that kind of stuff. So it's not a huge challenge for me. All right. And you can find cheap places to stay. What I'm saying is for Americans with American dollars. Really, I want to talk to the black youth, black boys and girls who haven't traveled yet. Let me be your teacher. Let me be your guide. Let me tell you about it, okay? Because there are companies in America that will tell you for an 8-day travel tour of a country, it's gonna cost you $6,000 or $7,000, which is not true at all. All right, you can spend a fraction of that, less than a fraction of that, and you can spend more time in the country. You could spend 2 weeks in a country and spend just a fraction of that amount. But they'll want you to buy into, hey, you have to be with a group, you have to be safe, you have to. That's a bunch of bull crap, okay? But anyway, um, let's talk about my travels. So when I was in Japan, I went to Tokyo. I love Tokyo. And I also went to Nagasaki. If you're young, if you don't know about Nagasaki, well, Nagasaki and Hiroshima, these are the two cities in Japan that were bombed by us, by the United States, okay? Right now, there's a lot going on in the world. Maybe you've heard a lot of the news about Israel bombing Gaza. Like, yeah, those are atrocities that are being committed in the name of American capitalism that are happening right now. In the 1940s, Hiroshima and Nagasaki were bombed in the 1940s, pretty much for the same reasons that Israel is bombing Gaza today. Imagine that. So, tragedies are not new, they're just moving. The target of the aggression is just changing. Like, for instance, I don't know, there was a joke how when, like right now, Latinos are being targeted, but before Latinos were being targeted, it was like it seemed as if the world's attention was on black Americans, blacks, just targeting, police murders and all that, police brutality and all that kind of stuff. So there's always suffering, there's always aggression, there's always pain, murder, death in life. It is what it is. Let's go back to the 1940s and let's learn about Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This book I got from the library, so the title is covered up. Let me show you the back so you can read it clearly. Hiroshima and Nagasaki. All right. I was sitting here. I got this book from the library. They were going to throw the book away, so I got it for free. And because I went to Japan 3 weeks ago or so, I mean, over the last 2 months of summer vacation, I was in Japan twice. And the last time I was there was probably like 3 weeks ago, maybe. It was last month, June. I don't know exactly. Those details aren't important. What's important is that I did go to Nagasaki for the second time when I was there this past summer. But I'm going to read to you something that is just, I think it's just mind blowing. something that helps you put historic events into context. All right, so I'm going to read from the book. It says here, the bombing of civilians. Think about that for a second. The bombing of civilians. Now, if you think about Los Angeles and you think about gang violence, you typically hear gang members saying that, gang violence is perpetrated between gang members. And sometimes people say if you're a civilian, well, you don't have to worry about gang violence. You're a civilian, you're outside of the gang stuff. Imagine America being a gang, imagine Japan being a gang. The wars, the acts of aggression were not only were not only specific to the military, the military gangs, the U.S. and the Japanese. No, it spread to the civilians. So can you imagine if gangs in Los Angeles started targeting civilians? You'd be like, wait a minute, I'm not even in a gang, and you're gonna target me, you're gonna hurt me, right? That's basically what happened in the 1940s. It also happened in Colombia. The Colombian people were suffering because of the drug cartels, the paramilitary groups, and the government. All kinds of stuff was happening in Colombia. Colombia. Pablo Escobar, Cali cartel, Medellin cartel, stuff like that. All of those things were happening, causing problems for the civilians. Let's talk about Japan and America and the things that happen to civilians. All right, so here it goes. The bombing of civilians. It says, before the war, both President Roosevelt and Henry L. Stimson, the U.S. Secretary of War, spoke out against the bombing of civilians. On September 1st, 1939, President Roosevelt condemned the use of air attack against towns and cities. Don't bomb from airplanes above cities. Who does that? Really? That's basically what he wanted to say. But he said here, the ruthless bombing from the air of civilians during the past few years, which has resulted in the maiming and the death of thousands of defenseless men, women, and children, has profoundly shocked the conscience of humanity. Isn't that what's happening to Gaza, to the Palestinians? Defenseless men, women, and children, thousands of deaths, maiming. Okay? These actions have shocked the conscience of humanity. Yes. If you're aware of if you're aware of what's happening in Gaza, your conscience of humanity, you're screaming out, where's your humanity? Why is this happening? Don't kill men, women, children. Don't kill these people. They haven't done anything. They're just on the land. All right, let's continue. Having come into the war, the United States never officially changed its policy of bombing only military targets. American leaders sometimes used self-deception to protect their principles. In March 1945, after a firebomb attack on Tokyo killed around 100,000 civilians, Stimson asked his Air Force commanders to assure him that they had only been attacking military targets. What did that conversation look like? Yes, I am an American military general. My military soldiers tell me, are we only killing military personnel in Japan? And then they have to think, no, we're not only killing military personnel. We're not only bombing military personnel, but that's what he wants to hear. That's what the general wants to hear. That's what we have to tell him. Sir, yes, all of our sites have been military sites. Very good. Our military is the best. We are strategic and we only We fight by the rules, okay? We only attack military targets, and we're doing a great job, just as I thought. Very good. When the reality was, no, we're killing civilians. That was the reality. Look at this. Next page. Fighting to the death. The fighting in the Pacific was fierce and merciless. The Japanese were schooled to die for their emperor and country, and therefore would resist to the last man. In 1942, triumphant Japanese armies spread as far as Burma, Indonesia, and Papua New Guinea. You should know your geography. Okay, they're talking about other countries there. Burma is now called Myanmar. That's a different name. This is an old book that I'm reading from. Then the Americans drove them back, island by island, across the Pacific. As the fighting drew closer to Japan, American deaths increased. So did the readiness of the Japanese to die rather than surrender. When the island of Saipan fell to the Americans in July 1944, Japanese officers ordered Japanese civilians on the island to commit suicide rather than surrender. Whole families obeyed. Many leaped from cliff tops into the sea before the startled eyes of U.S. soldiers and pressmen. Imagine your government told you, we're not winning this war. It's best that our citizens do not assimilate into their society. It's best that our citizens are not captured by this, our enemy. Suicide is best. We should commit suicide if we have no other option. Can you imagine? And then to be a military, to be a United States military officer, and instead of killing your enemy, watch as your enemy commits suicide and says, no, I'll take suicide over over being captured by you. And you just stand there just stunned, like, yo, they're just committing suicide. All of them, whole families. And you don't have to do anything. You're just watching like, whoa. But then think of the commitment and the loyalty to these values to their nation that the Japanese say, we are Japanese. We are unique. We are collective. We have a collective identity. We have a way of life that we abide by, we obey, we love. And we will not have you interfere with the conduct of our lives. We would prefer death over interference from a foreign. Wow. I'm gonna read just a little bit more because I love Tokyo, and this talks about Tokyo. All right, a little bit more. It says, at the Battle of Leyte Gulf in October 1944, Japanese airmen began using kamikaze suicide tactics. They turned their aircraft into flying bombs, crashing into the decks of Allied warships. The suicidal courage of the Japanese made the Americans more ruthless in response. U.S. Admiral William Halsey, one of the commanders in the Pacific, had the motto, kill Japs, kill Japs, kill more Japs. Okay, so now we talk about Tokyo. I just came back from Tokyo. I had a wonderful experience. There were so many people from so many countries in Tokyo. We were having a ball, right? Yeah, well, 60, 70 years ago, Tokyo was decimated by the United States. It was bombed out. Tokyo looked like Gaza in the 1940s. Today, Tokyo is vibrant, but in 1945, it looked like Gaza. All right, let's read it. It says Tokyo burns. In January 1945, Major General Curtis Lehman took command of U.S. air attacks on Japan. Curtis Lehman was responsible. He ordered 20th Bomber Command to carry out a mass raid with fire bombs, incendiaries on the Japanese capital, Tokyo. The buildings of Tokyo were very close together and made of wood and paper. On the night of March 9th to the 10th, March 9th to the 10th, a raid, that's just a coincidence, I had to put that in there. March 9th to the 10th, a raid by more than 300 aircraft. 300 aircraft started a fire that destroyed 15 square miles, 39 square kilometers of the city. 15 square miles. So where I traveled today, that was on fire in 1945. 15 square miles. More than 100,000 people are thought to have died. More than 100,000 people were thought to have died on the night of March 9th to March 10th in 1945. The official U.S. Strategic Bombing Survey said after the war that probably more people lost their lives by fire at Tokyo in a 6-hour period than at any time in the history of man. More people died in Tokyo than at any time ever. And the United States was responsible for that. A 6-hour bombing, a 6-hour fire bombing of Tokyo occurred in 1945. The U.S. was responsible for it. 100,000 people were murdered. We often hear about Hiroshima and Nagasaki and think those were the worst. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, because 70 some thousand people were killed like pretty instantaneously. Hundreds of thousands of people lost their lives due to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. But what about the firebombing of Tokyo? What about the 1945 firebombing of Tokyo? I am Tokyo. Tokyo ga miemasu. Ichimaru-kyu ga miemasu. This is wild. History is whoa.